Welcome to Agree to Disagree, the podcast where two sisters show how you can disagree about everything but still keep that family bond and friendship.
That's right. We're Sharon and Karen, and we don't just see the world differently, we live it differently. Grab a coffee, settle in, and enjoy the conversation. Who knows? You might even find yourself changing sides.
Hi, Sharon.
Hi, Karen. Look at all the
Oh my gosh, that's a lot of notes.
It's like pages and pages, and I went through and did
highlighting. Wow,
notes.
That's impressive.
Look at all this.
I think I'm scared.
I still won't be very eloquent or astute, I'm sure, in my argument. But oh well, I tried.
Well, I'm not sure where this one's going to land because I feel like we probably feel the same way about all this. But anyway, how are you today?
I don't know. I am okay. I am on the tail end of that cough. So that's good, even though allergies are still bothering me. Thank you, Lady Bird Johnson, for all the beautiful wildflowers in Texas at this time of year. I do love to look at them.
But wreaking havoc with your allergies, huh?
Yeah, a little bit. I'm fine. Just busy. It's going to be a busy week and stuff.
Here are my pages of notes.
But see, yours are much more organized. I literally.
Kind of. Not really.
You see how thick this is? Look.
Wow. My goodness. You have 20 or 30 pages of notes.
Well, yeah, but the print's really big.
That's true. It's really only 2 pages, right?
Print's really big. This is why I don't like to do a lot of research, because then I go down rabbit holes.
Yeah. Well, there wasn't a whole lot to research on this, was there? Today we're going to talk about the SAVE Act.
Yes.
Yeah, make sure that we both research the same thing.
I know. Yeah, so we're going to talk about the SAVE Act. But here's the problem. I couldn't find just a whole lot of information just on the SAVE Act. What is included in the SAVE Act, aside just the fact that they're saying, you have to show citizenship or naturalization.
Well, first, let's say the SAVE Act is what? Securing
American voter
integrity and eligibility and enforcement and integral voting, something like that.
Yeah.
So we're talking about the act
which was actually passed by the House.
Right.
Did you see last July?
Yeah.
It was passed by the House last year.
Yeah.
And now it's going before the Senate.
Yeah, but what I read, the little bit that I read said that it is most likely not going to pass the Senate.
That's what I've read as well.
But I couldn't find any reason why it wouldn't pass the Senate, especially with a Republican-controlled Senate right now.
I'm going to just throw out there, got something to do with money and lobbyists. Let's just, be honest. That's how our country operates.
You think?
Yeah. So, okay, Seth. So what do you think about the SAVE Act? Do you think, because I think the SAVE Act, what it says is that you need to show proof of citizenship or naturalized citizenship in order to vote.
In order to register to vote.
In order to register to vote. What do you say? What say you?
I can see both sides of it because, I'm so open-minded. I think on the face of it, it makes sense that you should have to prove that you're a citizen to register to vote. You have to in a lot of countries, especially my husband. He's like, well, yeah, absolutely. You should have to prove you're a citizen to register to vote. And it's like, yeah, but
if you don't, go ahead. Sorry.
But my whole thing goes back to, it's like, yeah, I don't see it's that big of a deal, except for the fact that it could lead to disenfranchisement of a lot of people that maybe don't have access to original birth certificates. The majority of the population don't have passports. I think I saw even over 60% of the population does not even have a real ID yet in the US, which was years ago that passed, right? That they wanted you to get the real ID?
Yeah. Well, no, it could be an ID or it could be a driver's license, one or the other. You didn't have to have both.
Right. But
yeah.
I saw 2 different things. I saw contradictory information because on one thing I saw that a real ID would be proof of citizenship because you had to prove your citizenship to get a real ID.
To get the ID.
But
same thing with the driver's license.
No. Driver's license, you don't have to prove citizenship to get a driver's license.
Not citizenship, but you have to have your birth certificate, which then shows your citizenship because it shows where you were born.
Do you?
So all this
it doesn't necessarily show citizenship. Your birth certificate doesn't show citizenship.
But if it shows that you were born in this country, you are a citizen.
Well, then you would say that I couldn't. No, because I wasn't born in the country.
You have dual. No,
yes,
but you are.
But that doesn't.
Citizens of this country.
That my birth certificate does not prove my citizenship.
But it does prove that you were born to parents who are U.S. citizens, which makes you a citizen of the U.S.
It doesn't prove that in and of itself. It proves who I was born to, but there is no proof on that document if those people are citizens or not.
Yes, but then you can just pull up their information and say,
that's what I'm saying. But my document in and of itself. So you're talking about all of the immigrants that were born, or even Americans that were born overseas, that their birth certificate alone does not necessarily prove citizenship. That's what I'm saying.
But you can track it. But it can. If it does show that you were born in the U.S., then it does show that you're a citizen.
Yes.
So we're both right.
Yes.
We're both right on that. Okay.
My thing is the way that this whole thing came about. I still go back to non-citizens voting is not a substantial enough issue that I would want to do anything that would disenfranchise even more people or prevent even more people from registering to vote or make it even more difficult for people to register to vote. I'm okay with requiring citizenship, but again, the way that they're going about this whole thing is not necessarily the best way. I think that we have things in place to prevent voter fraud. And for the most part, it's working because there has never been any indication of substantial voter fraud in the U.S. ever, no matter what.
You're making an emphatic statement that I don't think you can prove.
Because I searched for proof of substantial voter fraud, and there is none. There is no documented proof. Look at all the lawsuits that were filed in 2016. None of them came to fruition. None of them. There has never been substantial voter fraud established in the U.S. ever.
So you're saying that our court systems are perfect.
What's that got to do with anything? No, I'm saying that
it's never came to fruition.
They were never proven. Did you find in all that research that you did you ever find any proof?
I didn't research voting fraud because that's not what we're talking about.
We're talking about the SAVE Act. Why was it brought about? It was brought about because people say, oh, we've got hundreds of thousands of illegals voting in elections. That's not a true statement. There is nothing to back up that statement. No proof to back up that statement.
No, I found proof that there are. Now, I also found a lot of contradiction between the numbers, depending on what publication you read. Some said 10 to 27%, which is
that is not
high.
And even the one that said as high as 60% at one point revised his figure later on and came down to 1%, or less than 1%.
I saw that as well. Yeah, I saw that as well. And then, so I did the numbers on that 1%. And even if, let's just say that's a conservative number, but let's just say, even if it's 1%, there are 11 million.
I don't believe it's 1% for a minute.
Okay.
Not even for a minute.
Wait. Let me have my argument. There are 11 million illegal immigrants or undocumented immigrants in the U.S. right now today. Now, if 1% or even less than 1% of those 11 million were able to vote, that would just bring it down to 100,000. I
don't believe that for a second, because I've seen nothing that proves that it's even 1%. The percentages that I'm seeing. But the percentages that I'm seeing, but you're assuming something that isn't valid. You're assuming something that isn't real. There's nothing that supports that number.
I'm trying to make an assumption hypothetically so we can discuss this.
Well, you can say hypothetically if 50% of voters were.
To discuss the principle. The numbers don't really matter. It's the principle.
The numbers do matter to me because my premise is I don't have a problem. I don't have an issue with requiring proof of citizenship to register to vote. I don't have a problem with that. What I have a problem with is everyone supporting this for misleading information. Again, we're saying it's okay to come out with unfactual information.
I wasn't gonna be the grammar person here and try to correct you.
With misinformation, the percentages that I'm seeing for individual states, it's 0.0001%, 0.00025%.
I saw some of that as well, but if you take those things, okay, again, let me go back to my argument. Let's just say, okay, you don't like the 1%. Let's say it's 0.5%.
Let's say it's
I don't know how to.
Well, let's say people are. Let's say people are. We won't even use percentages. We'll say people are voting illegally. They're also, in a lot of cases, getting caught. And the punishment is fines, imprisonment, or deportation. Fine.
So
what's wrong with the system as it is? Because this law is going to, again, just doing a blanket law like this without allowing for, because when I read the SAVE Act, did you read it?
No, I couldn't find it. I couldn't find the actual SAVE Act. I'm not kidding you. Like, I could not find it.
I don't remember.
Saying, what does the SAVE Act say? What is included in the SAVE Act? And nothing would come back telling me that.
Well, the current law, and this is also goes back to my issue of it. The current law is it is illegal for non-citizens to vote. So all this is doing is saying, well, now you have to prove that you're a citizen to register. But that registration happens, I mean, I would assume, then what I couldn't find is when someone registers to vote, isn't there a current way that authorized that they're a citizen once that registration happens? Why not just fix the system? If you have a problem with it, fix the existing system so that you do catch these things more quickly instead of putting new laws on top of existing laws. I mean, they're doing the same thing.
That's exactly what I said about fixing Medicaid and Medicare instead of bringing in Obamacare. I'm like, why can't we just fix what's wrong with Medicaid and Medicare?
It wasn't just about Medicaid and Medicare. Obamacare, Obamacare was about getting people that couldn't have access to health care.
That's what Medicaid and Medicare are for. That's the public healthcare system in our country. But yet we had to have a whole nother.
No, because Medicaid and Medicare are for elderly and below poverty level, right?
No, they're for disability.
Okay, disability.
All kinds of things.
What else? Is it just unemployed?
You've got chips. No, it's not just unemployed. The working poor also.
What about just unemployed? What if you're not poor and you're just unemployed?
Now we're getting on another topic.
Yeah, we'll have to go to Obamacare one day.
Okay, so the original Constitution does not really say anything about the right to vote.
Yeah, but we have laws in place.
It's all the amendments that came into play, right?
Yeah.
And it's the 14th Amendment that extends citizenship to all natural born or naturalized Americans, regardless of race, or guarantee rights of citizenship, like voting and stuff. So I agree with you. I think you should show proof of citizenship to register to vote. You're saying that's going to disenfranchise a large number of people.
I think the way that they're doing it is going to disenfranchise.
What I was reading was, you're going to have to show a birth certificate or a passport. That's not true. I don't think that should be true, and that may be talking to the way you're saying.
Well, that is true. Why do you think that's not true?
I don't have to show anything when I show up to vote.
Oh, you're talking about right now.
I have to show nothing when I
That is true.
Nothing.
That is true.
Yeah. There's
nothing.
Anything. They just say, "What's your name?" And I tell them my name.
On the voter, well, the difference is
because I'm registered. It's because I'm registered to vote.
The difference is you need to remember this is just about registering. This is not about voting. Voting day.
Exactly.
And I think that the media has not done a good job. Again, the media
again
has not done a good job of clarifying what this is. This is about showing proof of citizenship when you register to vote, not when you go to vote.
Not when you go to vote. I agree with you because I was reading the same thing. I said this isn't about showing proof of citizenship at the time you're voting.
Right.
It is in order to register
to vote.
So I'm like, all right, you have an entire year before a vote comes to get your proof of citizenship or naturalization.
Yes, but the disenfranchisement comes in. Well,
anybody?
Because now you can no longer register by mail. You can no longer register online, and you can no longer do registration drives where you go out and sign up dozens of people to vote at once.
Has that been? I don't.
If you're registering to vote, unless those people unless those people have documented citizenship with them, because you're going to have to do this in person. You're not going to be able to mail it in, and you're not going to be able to do it online. You're going to have to.
Well, you have to, but that is, I mean.
No, to register to vote now.
Citizen.
To register to vote now, you just check the box. Are you affirming that you are a U.S. citizen? And it is against the law. It's a federal offense to lie on that.
And how are you gonna prove that they're lying?
They do it now. They do it now. States run checks to flag everyone that is suspected of not being a legal citizen.
How are they going about doing that? How are they going about?
They're doing it.
How are they?
They're doing it. In 2016, even in 2024, Texas did it.
I read.
And
do you know what I read? I read also that there are some states that are just inadvertently then going in and saying, well, these people are not citizens, and they're pulling them from registration, and then they're in error. It's wrong.
Well, Texas did that. They pulled a lot, but at least they pull who is suspected. And they said the problem is that they went and pulled these suspected ones, and then without doing any further research, eliminated them from the voter rolls. And then when they went back, out of like 3,000, was it Texas? This was Alabama. A little over 3,000 were pulled, but a little over 2,000 were actually eligible when they went back and looked at it, which is fine if they don't just automatically discount them from the voter rolls. It's like go in and do your research, pull the ones and flag it. But Texas was one of them that went in and just took off those thousands of people. And it ended up, what they grabbed in that sweep were people that may have been in the process of legalizing their status.
Right.
And so when they pulled it, they were illegal, but then they were naturalized and had the right to vote.
So let's talk about that a little bit. Are you completely okay with naturalized citizens being able to vote?
Why wouldn't
do you know
I be?
Do you know the laws and the rules around being naturalized?
Enough to know that if you're a citizen, if you're a U.S. citizen, then you have the right to vote. Why wouldn't you want...
I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about naturalized citizens.
Well, I don't know in what context you mean. How do you become a naturalized citizen?
No. Are you okay with naturalized citizens being able to vote?
Yes. You're not.
Okay, I figured you were. I'm not sure. And that's the rabbit hole I went down.
Wow. I was not expecting that.
I know, right?
Wow.
Because, so
you don't think if you're not born and raised in the United States, you don't deserve a vote. You don't deserve a voice.
I'm saying I think we should actually look at the naturalized citizen laws and the rules or criteria around becoming a naturalized citizen.
Why?
Because they're pretty lax.
So you think fewer people should be allowed to become citizens?
Fewer people, I think, should be allowed to become naturalized citizens. Let's qualify that. Naturalized citizens.
Well, how else do you become a citizen besides you're born there?
You have naturalized. Huh?
How else?
No, I'm not saying that you shouldn't allow naturalized citizenship. I'm just saying I think we need to study the criteria because it's pretty lax.
It's not lax. It actually takes a very long time to become a citizen.
How much time do you think it takes?
I don't know, but it's not a quick process.
First of all, you can just be married.
It still takes time. You still have to go through an entire process.
3 years.
That's not true.
That's the minimum.
That is the minimum. But that is not that's probably not the average. And first you have to be approved. You have to go through interviews. You still have to go through a whole process.
No, you don't.
It's not
you don't have to take exams. You don't have to take exams. I mean, you have to take a physical exam. That's it. But like a physical health exam. But no, you can become a naturalized citizen between 3 to 5 years. You can do it through marriage. You can do it through work. You can do it through.
So now you don't even want people to have a legal path to citizenship.
No. I never said that. You're not listening.
So I don't understand what you're trying to say. You want to make it more difficult?
I think we should look at the criteria for naturalizing citizens.
What is wrong? What is wrong with the current criteria? If you think it should be looked at, what is wrong with the current criteria?
I think it's a little lax. I personally, when I went down this rabbit hole, that's where I could tell I was starting to go, wait, I don't have a problem with you proving citizenship to register. And I don't have a problem with the naturalized citizens being able to vote. Then when I started looking at, what defines a naturalized citizen? And it's basically living in this country permanently for 3 years. I'm like, wow, That's all you have to do, because
I think that's a very simplistic view of it. And I think you're looking at...
It's not simplistic.
No, Sharon, that's the minimum. That's the minimum. But you talk to immigrants, you talk to actual immigrants that went through the process of naturalization. And I have never met any immigrant that said it only took them 3 years. It has always taken like 7 to 10 years.
I am saying that you only have to, I'm not saying the process, I'm saying the criteria. You only have to have lived in this country 3 years, permanently for 3 years, in order to apply for naturalization of citizenship. For your
Okay, well, let's go with your assumption that it's only 3 years. Why does that bother you? If they are then living in the country, why does it bother you that they have a vote? If they are paying taxes and they are a good citizen and they are abiding by all the laws, why do you have a problem with them being able to vote?
Because I think it dilutes what citizenship actually means.
What does citizenship mean? Why do you have more of a right to it because you were born there rather than someone who actually chose to be in the U.S.?
Because I was born in this country.
That's not by your choice. That is not by your choice. That's by pure luck.
It doesn't matter. It's my birthright. It's my birthright. It's my birthright.
So you're completely getting rid of the American dream. Don't come to America because you don't deserve.
You are going so far. You are taking this way off. That is not what I'm saying. I never said that. We have 1/5 of the total immigrants in the world are in the U.S. 1/5.
I'm not sure I believe that either. I think it depends on what you're looking at.
No. I found that. 1/5. That was in Pew Research Center, which you and I agree is a good source. We have 1/5 of the total immigrants in the world in America right now. You can look it up. I hear you typing. You go right ahead.
Well, I mean, I'm seeing something that says 20%. So that's a fifth.
1/5. There you go. Okay. What I am saying is citizenship provides individuals with a sense of national belonging and identity. Okay. It allows individuals to participate in the political, social, cultural life, which 20% of our population already gets to be a part of all of that, whether they're citizens or not. They already get to experience all the political, social, and cultural life and benefits of the U.S. There is a belonging of nationalism that is important. And I guess this is the other thing that kind of came into my mind, and you're really going to be upset when I say
yes, that. I probably am.
That's all the time we have for part 1 of our SAVE Act discussion. Tune in next week to find out what Sharon says to really push my buttons. Conversation gets intense, but we end up back in a good place as always. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll talk to you next week.
That wraps up today's show. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you enjoyed the show, please leave us a rating and review. It helps us improve and get the word out.
Reach out to us on Facebook and Instagram or shoot us an email at agreetodisagree@gmail.com.
Let us know what you think, what topics you'd like us to cover, or any questions you might have. Thanks again for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next episode.